So I've been playing Schuld. You know, as much flack as they get for being lazy pieces of shit, the RPG Maker games actually have quite a few nuggets of gold. And none of them are RPGs. Well, apart from off. Thing is, RPG Maker games are a fucking goldmine for those who love survival horror and narrative-driven games. People longing for the days of old-school survival horror really might want to look into this. Games like The Witch's House, Ib, and Mad Father are some pretty good examples if you're looking to get started. I mean, they aren't exactly masterpieces, but considering they're all free, I'd definitely say it's worth checking out. Anyway, Schuld is kind of a survival horror game, but it's mostly just a linear story. The story in question follows a man named Aaron. Aaron suddenly finds himself in a dying world, where money means nothing, people are rotting away, and cigarettes are the most valuable thing around. People are being forced to give away their limbs to people with rotten body parts. The game sets up what seems to be a very straightforward plot about a post-apocalyptic world and Aaron coming to terms with his past. But it really isn't. The writing isn't particularly masterful, but the game has so many unexpected plot twists and turns that the quality of the writing really doesn't matter too much. I won't spoil anything, but the game constantly goes against standard plot conventions and what you might expect what would happen. Also, besides the story, the best thing about this game is its atmosphere. The game's music is incredibly haunting and tense the entire time. And for as far as I could tell, it was completely original as well. It does use a few sound effects from the Silent Hill games, but given the fact that the game was made by one guy on his own, I wouldn't say that's a very big deal. Also, considering that the game was made in RPG Maker, it actually looks pretty good for what it is. The grey and gloomy color scheme the game has really works in its advantage. And sure, it definitely may take a few pages from the Silent Hill for Dummies handbook, but it definitely has enough of its own ideas to stand on its own. Gameplay-wise, it's a pretty standard survival horror game. You find some things, solve a puzzle or two, awkward shooting, it's really nothing to write home about. Still, the game does have some pretty challenging puzzles. For instance, one puzzle gives you a couple of numbers on a die, and tells you to write down the numbers on the opposite side to make a password. Unless you happen to have one laying around, I doubt many people would actually know that off the top of their heads. And while I appreciate the attempt at adding in some challenge, I definitely say it's a little immersion breaking to have to tab out every once in a while, or to search every nook and cranny of your house for a couple of dice. And for a game that heavily relies on atmosphere, I wouldn't say that's a very good thing. Also, the game has a few agility-based sections, which don't come out all that great. RPG Maker definitely isn't made for action, and, well, it shows. Running fast and dodging things is really awkward, not to mention the game's attempts at QuickTime events. And don't get me wrong, it's definitely ambitious, especially when considering how the engine works, but I'm gonna say that the game would have been better without. Outside of that, you'll mostly find yourself pressing spacebar to further dialogue boxes and walking around solving puzzles. And while you're doing that, the game constantly exudes the before-mentioned haunting and almost claustrophobic atmosphere, which isn't completely unlike Silent Hill. The game's focus on atmosphere really makes the seemingly dull task of walking around and talking surprisingly intriguing. This, combined with the game's story, makes for a pretty immersive experience. Anyway, the game was made by a single German man named Kelvin, and was kindly translated by Chipmunk. As I said, the game is completely free. So if you want to get swept away by a legit crazy story for about an hour and a half on a rainy October night, I would totally recommend it.
Rest in peace. Yeah. Rest in peace. In pieces, I mean, you will rot. rot in your grave. Ha ha ha. As death may lure above, or maybe below, if you like that. If you'd like to go to hell, that's maybe the thing you like. Chocolate sprinkles on your eyes, in your eyes. It will sting, it will sting your eyes out. Fade out, fade out, fade out, fade out. We out.